the outro and intro. That's the only part I did. That's one time only. So different things.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, here we are again. Happy Thursday. This is the newsstreamingnetwork.com, WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, radio and TV podcast, internet singles talk, #1 talk radio. This is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine.
So today we're going to talk about a kind of a tender subject. When I was thinking about this, I was thinking, this is probably because your heart got broken. So today we're talking about healing from your past relationship wounds, and both from the male and female perspective, which you always get with us. I think that's one of the extra bonuses people like, that they get advice coming from the Y and the 2X person.
Yes, indeed.
Because what's interesting is, I think we often, I found, talking as you do as well with your clients, have different reasons that we feel the way we feel differently after a breakup, that our heart is wounded differently. And so sometimes we have to have a different method to heal it. And sometimes it's the same. And I think sometimes it's different, because certainly one of the big differences we talk about a lot is how when women get all full of feelings, they want to talk about them in infinitum in great detail and over and over about the same thing over and over and over. And men typically draw into themselves, walk away from the situation and go do something, which generally helps their insides feel better. And I'm not sure that it always helps to heal their heart. And I'm not even sure if the women crying and complaining about it heals their hearts. But I think certainly at the first level, it can sometimes take away that angsty energy that you have inside.
Yeah, for me, that explanation really is almost like the pressure cooker. We take the pressure valve off. It's the initial burst of steam to let down the pressures come down. But it doesn't actually, but my feeling is for both female, for feminine and masculine, and we're using this interchangeably right now with female and male for those people listening. It's a much deeper, great detail in previous podcasts about the alignment of those energies. But to speak that way is that even when the feminine is talking and venting stuff out, and the man's doing his own thing to go do things, it is letting the steam off, but the stuff that's inside hasn't been dealt with yet.
Yeah.
And that's true for both genders. So we'll definitely talk about that in this episode, and also talk about the nuances that are different between both. Because yes, how we first express our upset is different for men and for women, but also how you process and deal with any upsets, another level of that.
So what I found for women, I can talk about them really well because I am one of those.
Indeed.
Is often we feel wounded emotionally. I'll talk about the other ways, but we feel emotionally wounded when we don't feel that you care about our feelings. We want to talk about our feelings and you are kind of full up, or you don't see the point, or we don't seem to feel better no matter what you try to say. And so that is very wounding to our emotions. It's very wounding to our sense of well-being of our emotions. So that's certainly one of the wounds that women have to heal from. And when I talk about getting wounded, it's probably because the relationship we was going to talk about that your relationship had a big problem, and then you figured out how to get back together, and then how do you heal the wound? Or you had a big problem and you separated, and now you're not together anymore, and that's a whole nother wound to heal from. So looking back at what I started to say is, what's really important is to say, what was my part? What was my part? And however I got wounded, whether we got back together or we split up, because that's going to really help a lot of your wounding, is what was your part in maybe having a conversation that you weren't expressing as well as I'm doing it right now. You weren't expressing yourself really well. You weren't really clear about your needs, and you couldn't say them clearly to them or hear back from them. Yes, this is what I'm upset about. Can you do something differently? So to figure that out after the wounding happens, And what could you do differently? That is a great way to heal, because then you feel empowered.
Indeed.
Yeah.
The thing that there's also there's also this challenge that sometimes when we get upset or we feel wounded, it's not the first time. It's also not the new experience, because it isn't the first time. It's like oftentimes those wounds are like reopening old wounds that have not been healed from the past times too. So there's a gift and a curse in this in a way, because it can hurt like hell way more than actually what's happened. That's the other part too. So if we are being triggered with old wounds in this current situation, the upset we feel, the woundedness we feel, can be much greater than actually what was initiating or instigating the problem in the first place. But the gift of it is it may be time finally to sit down and do the work with a coach or somebody else to heal it once and for all. Because there's one meme I've seen going on for many times about if you want to find a partner who will help you unpack your baggage, sort of thing. And my thing is like, no, don't give them that responsibility. It sounds romantic, but it's codependent.
Yeah.
Find somebody who's not your partner to do that with, so you can be free to be with your partner, fully whole and baggage-less, so to speak.
When that brings up the subject is this a wound that's happening in this relationship, even if it's happening over and over, or is it something that's from another past relationship, or even your relationship when you were growing up with your family?
Indeed.
It is wild when something will push one of your old buttons. This is how my parents treated me. This is how I felt when I was a kid. When somebody will say something that really isn't that big today, but it calls up all the big that's been growing in you from before. So that's another way to look back at and say, what? I mean, really? Why am I this upset about that? I mean, aren't there times when you've said something to a friend and they're like, because it's not their thing first.
Right.
And that there's stuff that everybody's happened when they were growing up, but it wasn't their thing. And they're like, really? Tell me again why you're so upset about that? I mean, that might be a good clue to go, oh, maybe this is my old stuff.
That is, I mean, I would say not so much it's a surprise that shows up. It's almost like guaranteed, because we tend to be, how to say this in a polite way, we'll say we're almost like issue magnets, but it's like, no, but we tend to walk around with those old, especially parental learning issues at the surface. So they become more easily triggered, so to speak. And put in this context, as I've said this many times before, is that we tend to attract partners who remind us of our parents, but not on a conscious level. It's almost a subconscious level, because what we're looking for is what we associate with love. And if we were raised in a family where love was tied with, for example, loud voices and arguing, then that's what you're going to find is what's the most loving thing. Somebody does that, you'll go, I'm in love with that person because they remind me of that feeling. Or it's somebody where you basically compartmentalize everything and keep everything quiet and it's peaceful, in quotes. You attract someone like that because it's taking you back to the childhood memory. That's where we at first associated behavior with love. And so that behavior becomes the anchor point for what love means to us. And so if we don't resolve that and change it to what we really want, we keep repeating it as an adult. So that's why it tends to be on the outside being seen first, because that's the pattern we use as our key to the door, or to be the magnet that attracts us to the first person we meet, which is why it's so messy when you don't do the work.
Yeah. And oh, Mary, on that same note, just to add a little bit, that I am so clear that we do often call people into our lives to really help us heal old wounds, for sure. Yeah. It's a gift that doesn't always feel like a gift in the beginning.
No. Well, it's a gift that keeps on giving.
There seems to be all sorts of stuff that keeps showing up, huh?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So identifying what the wounding is. So if you think about, I don't feel cared about, I feel like I'm being dismissed, I feel like you're not listening to my feelings. That might be true. I mean, it really might be true. And if it's feeling really huge, like this huge wound, it might be because it's from before.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing is, we often will let things slide. Oh, that's not such a big thing. And if you really mean it's not such a big thing, that doesn't mean you're storing it. That means it's down the drain. What we frequently do is we store and store. Oh, that's not a big thing. Well, pretty soon all those things turn into a really big thing, which is why you dump on somebody else. So that's back to your responsibility too. And if somebody truly is treating you disrespectfully, badly, you have clearly said, this is what I need and want, and they won't do it, can't do it, then that's when you have to say, I need to leave. I need to leave. I mean, if I've had the best conversation I know possible, we've talked to somebody else that's been a third person that's helped us, and it's still not working, then the wounding will be much less if you've been proactive and not let it just keep building up. Yeah, but that's a really challenging thing for us to do.
The thing just does add fuel to that point about if you're saying it's no big deal and it's means of deflection, that's another clue that basically you're not doing the work. And that's the thing, is that we have defense mechanisms built in to protect ourselves. We don't want to get hurt. So we'll tend to deflect a lot of times those things that are thrown at us by our partner unwittingly or unknowingly that will resonate with something from the past we haven't dealt with. But because we don't want to upset our partner, or we don't want to be upset or feel the wounding, we'll deflect it like that's no big deal. But as you said, unless it is going to be flushed down the drain and it's already over with, then there may be some clues there that you want to work on, to focus on, because frankly, if you don't deal with it, it just builds up and builds up and builds up inside, and there's no relief.
So one of the challenges with a past relationship wound is you probably can't talk to them. You can't have it out. You've already had it out as much as you can have it out, and now they're gone. So one of the things I've done personally, and I've suggested to my clients, and it's amazing how it has helped, is to write them a letter and tell them off. And tell them all the horrible, awful things they did. Call them all the horrible, awful names you have available at your disposal, and really write it out. Talk about the betrayal, talk about the hurt. And at this point, you're not making any excuses. You're not giving them any grace. You're not giving them any leeway. This is just to get all the ick out. I mean, we're not caring if they had a bad childhood. We're not caring that they were doing their best. This letter is just, you horrible, awful person, this is what you did to me. This is how you hurt my feelings. This is how you made me afraid. This is how you upset me consistently. This is how I felt dismissed. I mean, anything that you felt, you need to write in this letter. And it's so cute. My clients all tell me that they're now calling it the feeling better letter. Because once you've written it all out, then you do something with it in some sort of a ceremony. You can burn it. You can wrap it up in a rock and throw it in the ocean. You can rip it up in tiny pieces and throw it down the toilet. I mean, there's lots of different ways to dispose of it, because this is never a letter you mail or share with it. My clients tend to share it with me, but you're not sharing it with anybody else.
Right.
And then, but you have to really do this, and don't just sit down and usually do it just one passing. You keep writing until you feel like you've purged everything out, and you reward yourself every time you do this, because it's kind of a hard letter to write. But once you've completed writing that whole letter and disposed of it, then you write a letter from them to you where they apologize for every single discretion, because it's what you need and deserve. Even if you had a big part of it, even though you've now learned you could have done differently, I need an apology. So you say, dear you, I'm so sorry I dismissed you. I'm so sorry I was so uncaring. I'm so sorry I did this betrayal. And you have them say, I'm so sorry for every single thing they did. And then you dispose of that letter too. And I have to tell you, with other work, this has really been part of their healing of really old relationship wounds with their parents, with their siblings, with significant other romantic ones. You can write this letter to anybody.
Absolutely. And I love that. That's something I've used with my clients too. The thing that I love about it also, I said at the end, is it can be for anybody. And for many people, this is powerful for parent resolutions, even if your parents are gone. And so the thing about this, as you said, if they're not here, it still works. And underscore, you don't send it. If they're alive, you don't send it. No. But the thing about it is, it is untangling the knots inside, and it's also letting off the pressure, like the pressure valve we said before on the pressure cooker. It's clearing out what's inside of that in a way that is a way of excavating and exhuming it so you can be free of it. And so by doing so, especially when you burn the letter in a ceremony, as you said, which I think is under fundamental, is that then you're allowing it to be dissipated into a higher plane, or to be another place. And the forgiveness letter from them, or I should say the apology letter from them, is so powerful as well, because I do a lot of work with parts integration and with dyads with my clients. So we do that from both sides of the conversations. They sit in the other chair as the person that they have the issue with. And by doing the letter the same way, it's the same idea, which is to have that sense of being given an apology and being receiving it. Even though you wrote it yourself, you can shift your mindset to act as if you're the other person, and have a sense of humility and of letting go, so that when you receive it, you can feel that in your own bones, because ultimately you're the only one that can do that anyway. Doesn't matter how many times, and they can say it. The actual person who did it can say it to you 10 times, and it might have a slight impact. But by having the conversation with yourself that way, you give yourself the best relief possible. So it's powerfully profound. One other piece I want to jump in there as well to say, which is one of the things I do in my work with my clients, is the forgiveness practices too, which is part of this. And after you've done those letters, it can be a perfect time, because ideally when you've done the letters, you'll have a sense of more compassion for yourself, more grace, more caring, and more love for yourself, which is a great energy and a great fertility of soil, so to speak, to plant the seeds of forgiveness. So to make peace with what happened, because ultimately in this conversation, you probably will discover for yourself where maybe you have your own stuff that you didn't do well enough. So things you said you wish you hadn't said, ways you acted you shouldn't have acted, the things you didn't do or did do, whatever those things are, that you judge on yourself. So you don't necessarily have to write a letter about that. However, if you take the time to do forgiveness work for yourself, that is truly based in the compassion and care for yourself, it has this ability to release everything. And just as an overarching thing, what we just said in the last few minutes about the different things to work with does apply to both genders, not just for women or for men, it's for both. Both genders can do this because it benefits both genders. So take these steps to heart and practice them, use them, because they'll change your life and free you up completely.
I love how you put it, that it's this wonderful nurturing fertilizer to now plant seeds for your own well-being. Because I mean, really, how would we not? Because we do need to look at what our part was, and to forgive ourselves that we did the best. As Maya Angelou said, we did then what we knew best, and now that we know better, we can do better. And like, I can grow an even better flower now. And when people tell me they like about the apology letter is, I get to say everything I want them to say that maybe they would never have said.
Right, absolutely.
You put all the words in their mouth that you need to hear, because it's all about you at this point. Because what this is about is generally past relationships. They're gone. It's over. I mean, maybe you're divorced and you're co-parenting and you see them, and this has made it even more palatable for that, because you let go of that sharp anger about them, that sharp resentment, which is, if you've got kids and you're co-parenting, it's really hard for the kids if you have rancor with each other. So this is a really good way to do some healing, certainly not to bring you back together as a couple, put you back together as a whole person, and heal you for yourself, for your children, and for future relationships that you might want to be in, because none of us like going out with somebody who's got a bunch of wounds from past stuff. We've all been that, and we've all done that. And neither is healthy. It's not healthy. Nobody's happy in that. It's starting off with such a handicap.
Yeah. And again, as we said, just again, I want to frame this again, both genders, as I said earlier, but also this is a good thing to do before you get to the next relationship.
Yeah.
Yes, the one you're in now may be giving you lots of things to think about, maybe some agenda and some red flags to deal with. But after that relationship is over, or if you're out of one now, is the best time to start looking back and go, okay, what do I want to clean up? What do I want to mess? What baggage do I want to unpack and dispense with so I can be free for the next relationship, to be fully present and fully able to participate? Because frankly, when you do that, when you choose that, your relationship that you're moving into, one, will be better, but two, you'll choose at a higher level, which is what it's all about anyway. So do the work, it's worth it.
So that is such a good segue, Barry, because we're going to go to a commercial break. And I think after that, we're going to talk about what if you're in a relationship and you have old wounds, what to do now.
Oh my God.
I think that'll be a great topic. We'll be right back after this commercial about our wonderful station that we're broadcasting from. And we're back. We're talking about healing from past relationship wounds for both men and women. So we've talked about what to do before you get in the next relationship, about wounds that you've had when you were growing up or when you've had past romantic relationships. But what if you're in one now? And you're like, oh, shit keeps popping up. And what in the heck am I going to do with this? Now that you pointed out, I might have to think about my stuff and do something about my stuff. What in the heck are we going to do?
Right. But one thing you can do is act it out on your partner and dump it on them, make them miserable, which is not what we recommend at all. But many people do that. Right?
It's often what happens. You are so correct, Barry.
I did that part myself. So this is definitely advice I need to take to heart at the time.
We've all done it. We've all done it. It's such a human way of reacting that when somebody pokes a sore place in our emotional being, we're going to lash out. I mean, that's just normal. When something hurts you, you run into something that pokes you, you back up and you get upset. Well, that's how it feels when somebody emotionally pokes you. So you start with, gosh, where is this coming from? Where is the first place this happened to me? Where were the next 12 ways this happened to me? And first say it out loud to yourself. And then if you're in, hopefully, a really good relationship with somebody who's there, you're going to help each other heal. Then you say, oh, I have to tell you, I got really upset at you the other day about this because I now remember this happened to me a lot as a kid. I'm so sorry I took it out on you. Call yourself out to yourself and to them. I had no idea. Wow, I'm so thankful. Sorry that this happened. And I'm thankful that this happened because now I get to heal it and you get to be part of my healing partnership. I mean, who wouldn't love hearing that? With an apology, of course. Yeah. But, it was amazing, the stuff that I was so surprised from my parents and my first marriage, what came up when I was married to Tony. This, like, it would just pop up out of the blue and I'd go, what? And I would have such an emotional reaction about that. What is up with that? And at least I had enough presence of mind, maybe not immediately, certainly within a reasonable amount of time, I'd go, what the heck? And he was so patient about listening. And he'd been married twice before, so he had stuff too. And it was so helpful to go, my stuff, I'm doing my stuff. Oh my God, can I just tell you about it? And why it has nothing to do with you, or why I need you to, because this is a thing for me and my family dismissed it and I really need you not to. And this is how it's best to have it not feel dismissive to me, because it was neither one of us ever did it on purpose. It was just the popping up stuff. So if you can get to a place, which is really challenging and so exciting when you do it, to go, why am I having this huge reaction? Because I remember hearing from a therapist a long time ago. My whole family went through so much therapy when we were growing up. If something really bothers you, like out of the blue, it's probably something you haven't acknowledged in yourself. It has proven true all these years, Barry. I just can't even stress that enough. If something's big, it's here.
Absolutely the case. The thing I would say is that, because you said how, stuff comes up around past relationships or from family when you're in a new relationship. I was going to say it's a theory, but it's not. It's the truth. I'm very clear, having learned this over the years in my psychology background, is that what happens is when we get intimate with somebody in a way that is deep emotional intimacy, and we feel vulnerable, and the walls start coming down, all that stuff that's been trapped inside, like the pressure cooker, that comes up. And so it's quite likely, in fact, if you're in a really deep relationship with somebody you trust, the stuff that you carry from before, from past breakups or from your family dynamics, it will tend to surface on its own accord. And so to be present to that and know that when it shows up, it isn't about your partner, it's about you. So you can be, like you said, honoring of self and honoring of your partner by saying to them, I just want to let you know this is coming up for me. It's not about you, but the gift of our relationship, you can frame it that way if you want to. The gift of our relationship has shown me this is something I need to work on. And so I'm asking you to be either one, accommodating and spacious enough to let me do that. Two, do you know a good therapist and go to, so don't do it with you? Because that's another tip, by the way. Don't do it with your partner because it's not their job unless they happen to be that in the works with you, but it depends on your relationship. But most people go see someone outside the relationship, like a therapist who can help you borrow a couple. Because frankly, now they've given you the gift of triggering you to see the behavior. It's behooves you to do something about it. Because if you keep carrying it around, it's just going to make the relationship go down the tubes quickly.
And the two sides of that vulnerable coin is, to be able to trust enough to feel vulnerable with somebody. And yet, when you feel vulnerable, even more of our self-protection and self-preservation just comes roaring out when something touches on one of those really tender places that's been pushed away for such a long time. Oh, yeah, boy, that is such a challenging and strengthening piece in any relationship. And I so agree. Having a third person that you talk to individually and or together so that the other person hears, gosh, it's not you, it's them. Because sometimes it's really helpful to hear, it's really not me. I know I got my stuff, but this one isn't mine. Yay. And to have somebody else say that out loud too, I found very helpful. So acknowledging first, what is this wound that they're touching on? What is this big reaction that you're having? And generally, they're either coming from their best place. They were so not meaning to hurt, or they're coming from their wounded place too, that you touched on some, and boy, it's awful if it's both of you at the same time, that you're having a similar thing or you're having a reaction at the same time with two different things. And often you just can't do it at the moment. You just can't. And people say things they don't mean and slam doors and carry on. If you've heard us say this, to now reevaluate in a little quieter moment, to go back and go, that was a lot. Boy, I really showed my butt. I love you, and why would I talk to you that way? Or you love me, why would you talk to me that way? It's so hard because you want to just push it away. It hurts so much. Why would you want to deal? You didn't want to deal with it all this time anyway. And boy, you have to have already developed a really good partnership to do that. Well, that's the things. We'd have these conversations when we were dating. He goes, I've never had these conversations before. To see, could I be vulnerable? Could I be myself with him? Because I kept feeling I could be so myself, but I kept going, here's a little bit more, and here's a little bit more, and here's a little bit more. Are you going to go screaming into the night? And no, not at all. He stood his ground the whole time. So yeah, it was pretty remarkable to learn all that.
I want to give one quick example, just thinking back to a couple of my clients I worked with. This was going several years ago, but I had a client who basically, she knew me, he didn't. And it brought me into a conversation with both of them. They were about to get married, and she just had the foresight, thankfully, although we'll get to the negative side of the moment, she had the foresight to reach out for support before they got married, just to clear up any loose ends before they get married, which frankly, if you're in that position, I recommend you do it as well. In the conversation I had with both of them, what came up very clearly was if she had trust issues, which is one reason she reached out to me in the first place, but she had trust issues with him, which tied into her relationship with her grandfather and her father, who both had cheated on their wives. So her trust issues she had with her future partner weren't on him, but he reminded her of her past growing up in her family. So that was gold. It was like, oh, that's so cool. That's so wonderful. And she was so happy about it. But she didn't do anything about it, and they still got married. And they got divorced a year later. So I'm saying this as a cautionary tale, is that if you discover, or if you feel there's something out of alignment and you seek help, like from me or Christine or somebody else, that gives you guidance and support to clarify what it is that isn't working, that is only half the battle, half the journey. You don't give up there and say, I'm done. As you said already about what to do with letter writing and the things you do with getting guidance and therapy as well, is you want to work and resolve that. So when you go forward, that isn't in the way anymore, because that's the challenge of this work or challenge of this issue is that those past wounds that we carry from past relationships oftentimes tend to repeat themselves and recycle through the next relationship. And if you don't want that happening again, you want to do the work, whatever it is in between now and the next relationship, so you don't carry it forward, because the price you pay could be higher.
Oh, that's such a sad story. Because this is not, we didn't even put the word in. The first word is acknowledging the wounds. And the word in this podcast is healing. Mm-hmm. Healing is after the acknowledging. So if you think of truly a physical wound, you have a wound on your arm and you just keep sticking bandages on it, it's going to keep festering. It can't heal. First, it's not necessarily going to get the dirt cleaned out, and it's not going to get the right ointment put on it, and it's not going to let the oxygen in to help it heal. It can't just be locked away in a tight little place and ignored forever, because we all learn it's going to pop back up again. Mm-hmm. So when it pops up, to go, oh, there's that thing again. There's that thing that keeps happening when I feel vulnerable, or this thing happens when the other person feels vulnerable, or when I start feeling safe, or when they want to make a commitment, or when they say something that feels rude, or they don't look at me when they're on the phone. What is it? What is this thing that bothers me over and over and over? If you really acknowledge how many times has this happened, because it's usually not this upsetting if it's just the first time. I mean, there's things like a gun to your head, but we're talking about the building up of emotions and the building up of sometimes something small they did that still affects us kind of big, and then it just keeps getting bigger, and we just keep pushing it back. It's a wound that will not heal. So the point is to first go, oh, I have this sore on my arm that I just keep putting bandages on, and I haven't really done the wound care. I've recently talked to somebody that does wound care. Is that the most interesting profession? I'd never even heard of it before. He does it remotely, because he can do it all over the world from where he is, because he knows all this weird stuff. Not weird, but stuff I don't know. So there's times when they consult with him, and they're in other countries. He's up in the middle of the night doing this. So interesting. So I know, I got to tell you, my capacity for people showing up and teaching me stuff is just one of my wonderful gifts. Yeah. So yeah, there's times when people have truly ignored a sore, and I go, how do you know what to do? He goes, well, part of the question is, how long has this been going on? Right. Which is here what we're talking about in your emotions. If it's way back from when you were little, let's fix it now. Let's help you move on without it. And if it's something that's just from the most recent past one, let's heal that too. Because everything, I have not talked to anybody that had an emotional wound that couldn't be healed. Now, you might be a little more cautious. You might have changed something inside of you because of it. They still all tell me they felt like it was healed enough that they could move on and learn to trust another person and learn to be vulnerable, even though it's going to take a little more work because they were so hurt in the past. But one of the reasons we're hurt in the past, especially as adults, is we're not paying attention to the hurts. We're not acknowledging them. We're not speaking our truth. So this gives you a chance to start speaking your truth more, so that those big hurts over and over don't happen. You're like, wait, no. This is something that's hard for me. Guess I didn't tell you yet. Let me tell you what it is. Need something differently. Can you do that? Is there a way that we can talk about this? Yes or no? Because if it's no, bye-bye.
That's one of the things about this conversation is we're talking about different places in the relationship paradigm. If you're single, if you're in an old relationship or a new relationship, as was said a few times during this conversation, I want to make sure this point is very clear again. It's not your partner's job to be a therapist. Make that blatant. It may be something they're gifted at doing, but however, and we talked about this in a previous episode about how we hold space for each other and how the masculine and feminine energy works, and we talked about communication. One of the things I talked about this earlier with somebody else is that one of the masculine's gifts is to hold space. Not to be a therapist, but to hold space, which for some women, that's all they need, is a place where she can vent and he can hold space and everybody gets free. But if you're working through past relationship issues, previous wounds, and especially family dynamics, that's a deeper thing than most people are built to handle in the relationship. Mm-hmm. And how you deal with it, who you go to see, especially if it's and I just thought this thought came up earlier, if it has some sort of trauma tied to it, you want to seek professional help, definitely, somebody you can work with, and you want to test drive who you feel safe with doing that with, because especially when it's traumatic level, trauma is so knotted up emotionally with the body and who you are, that if you work with just a therapist generically, you might find yourself actually being more knotted up at the end of it than you started with. So it's important that you test drive the person you want to work with as your facilitator, guide, therapist, coach, whatever you want to call them, first before you invest your emotional energy with them to do the deep work. And frankly, the freedom that's possible and the opportunities that's possible when you do commit to that, and you have somebody who can commit to you equally from the other side in their professional capacity, is a gift beyond value, because you will actually be able to put to bed or put to rest those past things you've been dragging for 10, 20, 30, 40 years that have been basically blocking all your relationship success in the first place. So it's worth it.
Oh, it's so true. And that's one of the main reasons you and I offer a time for people to just get acquainted with us, because we don't know. We don't know till we've talked to you. You don't know if you're going to feel comfortable with us. It's the first time to say, here's what's going on. Is this something that your expertise can help? And it's such an honor that people even call us and want to have that conversation to see if we're the right person. And then it's even more of an honor when they go, yeah, I think that we're a match in this. I think you can go with me on this journey. I say thank you every time, because I know that, as you do too, the universe has just put us together, that we have the right gift for that person. And I mean, some of your hurts wouldn't necessarily go under the category of trauma, and trauma is very deep. I think it's absolutely visceral. It will go into your nervous system. It will go into your musculature. It goes into your organs. I mean, it really can cause lots of ill in your body. And so getting rid of all those feelings that came from an emotional trauma or a physical trauma or a mental trauma is so important. It's one of the interesting things about where I'm volunteering now, because that's what their specialty is. It's for first responders and PTSD and children specifically that have had something traumatic happen in their life. And we use horses with that. It's really quite fascinating. So it's adding to my repertoire here. But I love that you and I have had enough in our lives and enough experience and enough schooling that when people come to us, that we're able to help them with this part of their journey. Oh, you're still muted, hon. No, you put your mute on when you blew your nose.
Yeah. For those who are listening on the podcast, I was blowing my nose. Now I mute my microphone so I don't blast you out with it. So I forgot I did.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I thought it was very thoughtful of you, and I just kept talking while I waited.
I didn't want to interrupt you, especially with the big,
Oh, it's so sweet.
Sound.
You're so
anyway. So this is what we're saying. So one thing I want to underscore you said is that the old beliefs and the emotional upsets and traumas do get stored in the body. We use this term many times before, and I've heard it forever about saying, if you resentment is like taking poison, expecting the other person to die. It is toxic to your own body. Judgment is a toxic energy in your own body. So if you're carrying around own judgments about your own participation in a relationship, or your ex-partners, or your parents, or somebody else you have massive judgment about, you're carrying the judgment inside of you. It doesn't make any difference to anybody else, but it's negatively affecting your emotional state, and it can impact your physical state too. So the longer you put off dealing with it, the more pain more infliction of pain you'll have for yourself, and the more upset you're creating in life anyway. So frankly, if you listen to this and you haven't done it yet, do it now. Do the work to get it freed up so you can help your body get healthy again, because it will help your body heal.
Because there's so few people I have ever talked to in the world that didn't have hard things happen in their childhood. Their parents were doing the best job. Some parents are terrible, but most parents are just trying their best. And there's stuff that it would be best if they really would work through it and heal it, because for their own personal well-being and for the betterment of their casual relationships, their romantic relationships, their familiar relationships of the people they're still talking to, it's overwhelming the difference it's made, that I've watched people blossom and they just feel better. They feel smarter and lighter and happier. It's really an amazing journey to go back and heal the wounds.
Yeah, and the wonderful benefit is the next relationship they're in is usually so much better than the one we were in before. And so it's kind of like, wow, I didn't know. And then you look back and go, I've come a long way.
Yeah, if you've not ever worked through them, you don't know how good it can feel. You really don't. And I will say out loud here, the journey is a challenge. It is. That's why lots of people don't do it. And it's got hard things and joyful things and very emotional things. And the other side of it, everyone at the other side, not always in the middle, the other side say, it was so worth it. I'm so glad I did it. I've not had one person say they weren't glad they did it, even though a few of them are like, this is hard. I go, oh, no, I've done it. I know. It's just beyond worthwhile.
It is amazing. And it's also I want to say it's like the best kept secret. It's something that I'm really surprised that more people don't know about, because frankly, the freedom that comes from this and the comfort and the ability to breathe more fully, and again, the quality of relationship you choose is such a benefit of doing this work. Yeah, some people just avoid it thinking it's something bad. It's like, yes, well, maybe the initial confrontation of your own stuff that you have to look at in yourself can be a bit traumatic initially, a bit challenging. It's like, it's worth just going through that part, because it gets easier and easier as you go through it, to the point where, as you said, at the end of it, you feel so free and so alive and so clear. It's worth doing the work. So
comfort. I love that you use that word, because it really is. Your life just feels more comfortable. And you won't pick those same kind of people that are the same kind of people that do the same kind of wounds. I mean, we all are going to have our stuff, and then you'll have tools of what to do with the stuff when it comes up. You come back to Barry or I, or you can work it out yourself. Maybe once you've already done this, you just won't have that big old heavy baggage that you've been carrying around forever. Yeah.
You know, one of the things about relationships, and actually I want to just drop in a quote from Lisa Nichols about this one, about she talks about how oftentimes relationships are like gift wrapped in sandpaper. Is that sometimes being in a relationship, it's going to cause friction. It's going to create a rawness and sometimes a tenderness where you might start feeling things you didn't feel before. Because the thing is, again, I said earlier in the conversation, it's because we start feeling more vulnerable, more open, more intimate, more loving, that it allows those hard shell casings to fall away. And so, yes, as you said, in new relationships, you might be wonderfully free from all that baggage from the past, but new stuff might show up because you may not have resolved everything. And that's the thing. If you're still on the planet, you probably have more stuff to work on. So don't be, what's what I was looking for? Don't feel suppressed by that. Don't feel saddened by that. That's good news, not bad news.
Yeah.
So, do the work.
It's normal. It's really, we're going to say it's normal. Remember that book? I think it was from the 70s, says, I'm okay, you're okay. And then the next where it was, I'm okay, you're screwed up. And oh my God, maybe it's me. I mean, I just thought it was like, oh, that makes so much sense. But then when you go, oh my God, it's me, you can work on it.
Exactly.
So if any of this has resonated with you, that something that's happening in the past, something that's going on right now, Barry and I would just love to have a conversation with you to see if you're really ready, because you need to be ready to have a conversation about, this is not the best way for my life to be, and not my best person with this person I'm with, or I want to pick somebody better in the future. You need to call us and contact us and talk to us, because we can help you sort that all out.
Yes.
So if you'd like to talk to me, the best way to contact me is through my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. And you click on what's holding you back from love, whether you're in a loving relationship or you've just gotten out of one, you want to love them more. And you click on that and you'll fill out 10 brief questions, and then you have access to my calendar to make schedule a conversation at your convenience. You can also join my mailing list, and you'll get repeats of the podcast and find out what I'm doing in my life right now. And if you scroll to the bottom of that page, you'll have access to all my social media icons at Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest and YouTube. You can also send me a personal email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com. And please tell Barry how people can reach you.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing your stuff, and I can share my stuff.
Thank you. We're good at sharing.
Yes, we are good at sharing. So if you want to reach me, you go to my website, which is my name, so easy to remember, which is barryselby.com. At the upper edge of the screen, upper part of the screen, there's a link there to click on a button which says "Take a next step," which you can do the same thing. We can fill out a form, get on my calendar, and we can have a conversation to see where you are and where you want to go. And if we do have a rapport, we want to work together because, again, as Christine said earlier, it's for both sides of the conversation. We want to make sure that you're comfortable, and also make sure that we're comfortable working with you because it takes two to tango in this conversation, so to speak. At the bottom of the home screen of my website, there is a link to join my email list because I also put out repeats of the show every week and other things I'm working on and offers and invitations to other programs I'm working on. For me, my social media is a mix of on Threads and Instagram, it's the real Barry Selby, but everywhere else, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, it's Barry Selby. So easy to find me there as well. So reach out to me. You can email me as well at barry@barryselby.com. And we both offer lots of different skills and tools and personalities. So you can definitely reach out and get some help from us. So next step, do what works for you best.
And we'd love for you to like and share this if you're watching it in person. If you get the repeat, please share it with your friends and family and like and share. And then we'll always be back here every Thursday at 1 o'clock Western time and 4 o'clock Eastern time and all the times in between.
And of course, don't forget, you can listen to us on the podcast platforms too. So if you're taking this with you, because our videos aren't to take with you, but if you want to listen to us, you can listen to us on Apple and Spotify and everywhere else. You can take it when you go to the gym, go driving, working out, whatever you're doing. So you can hear us, take us with you wherever you go. And I'll share it with your friends too, because they may want to take it wherever they go too.
We're very portable.
Yes.
Very shareable.
Absolutely. So with that, we'll see you again next week.
Bye for now.
See you then.